You're watching Just Politics, Our Worldview, live on Facebook every Sunday from 5 p.m. till 7. It's the podcast about politics in Barbados, the region, and the wider world. Now, here are your hosts, Ayo and Terry.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Terry. How are you?
Good afternoon, Ayo.
Okay. Not sure where Ronnie went, but I guess he'll be back. Ronnie's with us this afternoon also. Like he's been,
Hi, good afternoon.
yes. Unlike the rest of us, he decided to get his he decided to have babies rather than teenagers. But that's okay.
So if you hear Paw Patrol, Lion King, Thomas the Tank Engine, or the screams in the background, it could either be them or it could be me. Or crying. It might be me more than them. Let's just say that.
Depending on the type of screen.
Depending on the circumstance, it might just be me more than them.
I sympathize with you. I can't empathize, but I sympathize with you. Anyway, welcome to Just Politics, ladies and gentlemen. This evening, I promised a good show for you. I promised you last Sunday that we were going to be looking at some of the wins of the Barbados Labour Party over the period of time that they've been in government, and
the very few wins.
To do. Ronnie's here. He posted that he's gonna referee. I suspect he's going to end up being a defender or a tackler, but
I went to the gym yesterday just for this, Ayo. I was going to say some shots because I was getting ready.
That's okay.
I'm ready. Let me loosen up.
So that's exactly what we're going to be discussing this afternoon. I feel like this is important. And when I go through this, I'm going to go all the way back from 2018 coming up. Because
shouldn't we be doing this from the last election?
What's that?
Why 2018? Why are we going all the way back to 2018?
I'm going back to 2018 because people tend to have very truncated memories, yeah? And sometimes people need to be reminded. And because it also ties in. Something that nobody does when you're talking about the negative, nobody says, well, you're bringing up saying bad from so far away. When it comes to politics, that is. But when it's something good, it's like, oh, no, you got to deal right now. No. That's not how it works. It's a continuation, man. So we have to look at it holistically. Anyway, before we look at it, I just want to say something quickly because I keep hearing there's a lot happening right now. The campaign is heating up. Everybody is, going down the road with the campaigns, and a lot of good and a lot of crazy, and it's just silly season in general. And when it's silly season, all types of things happen. I think the Barbados Labour Party seem to be running a very coherent campaign at this point in time. They're all speaking with one voice in terms of the messaging, and that's always good. And they've done that very well twice. And they're obviously doing that again now. The Democratic Labour Party, again, struggling. Ronnie, I'm so sorry that you are no longer with the Democratic Labour Party to pull this together. Ronnie gave you a lot of stress and all the heat, but I really think that you were getting to a point where you were doing some good work with the Democratic Labour Party and starting to pull it together somewhat. All right, but you had a struggle on your hands, but it is what it is. What we're seeing right now is just crazy in terms of their messaging. It's all over the place. But it is what it is. And I don't want to credit anybody too much. I don't want to be Miss Negative Nancy over here, and then somebody say, oh, she's a paid influencer again. I don't get paid for this. If I did, you would know. All right, good. Anyway, because I'll be flossing. And if anybody want to pay me, this is a huge house. It's hard to maintain. I'm open to pick. Not. I'm just joking. Absolutely not. Anyway, let's continue. Yeah. All right. But before we go ahead, I want to talk about something I keep hearing on the DLP candidates, DLP supporters, and just general anti-BLP people saying all the time. You know, this concept that we shouldn't be talking about the lost decade at this point in time is so far away. We need to pack it up and well, not we, but the Barbados Law Party to pack it up and so forth. Or those people who are sympathetic with the Barbados Law Party, they need to stop discussing the concept of the lost decade. And I wholeheartedly disagree. When we think about the lost decade, that was literally just 7 years ago. All right, and that means something. We have to talk about it because for those 10 years, that was between what 2008 and 2018. We're just into 2026 now. All right, and the gears of Barbados, the gears of this country didn't just stop turning. The gears of this country actually started to turn backwards, and we all felt it, whether we want to admit it or not, because we're sympathetic with the Democratic Labour Party. No, we all felt it. All right. But again, people have sharp memories. People, they tend to be self-interested, and that's why I think it's sometimes that it's just necessary to remind people in general about the space that we should never ever want to go back to as a party, as a country in general. All right, and I mean, list some of the things because y'all have to remember that we had 23 or 22 downgrades really. All right, during that period of time, and that's significant. Those downgrades, they basically made Barbados a pariah in the financial world. And when they go on and they talk about some of the economic progress that the Barbados Labour Party has made, you will see the damage that those 23 downgrades actually caused us, because we that's why I say we can't look at this thing in a vacuum. We have to look at it holistically. All right, our foreign reserves bone dry at the point in time, down by just a few weeks cover. Can you imagine that we were facing the very real possibility of not being able to afford fuel? Do you understand that? That's where we were. It's like the South Coast crisis. I ain't gonna explain that. The excrement was bubbling in the streets. 17, between 17 to 19 buses or something like that to service the entirety of Barbados. Garbage trucks, non-existent. I still remember the length of time that we would have garbage just packed up in front of the house without a truck to come and move it. You couldn't drive through Barbados with the windows down because everything just smelled awful. Barbados was so dirty. Bridgetown was mangy, literally. I remember one year you came home, Terry, and we were driving through the city. We were going to dinner. We were trying to find some place to go to dinner, or we had a reservation. I don't remember exactly, but I know we were going to dinner. All right. I remember you looked at me and you said, well, "This is what Barbados comes to: prostitutes and potholes."
I don't remember saying that.
That's why I remember it. I made a post about it on Facebook. I didn't put your name, that you the person who said that, but I literally made a post about it because I thought it was like so fitting, because that's literally what it was. I remember driving so slowly, just trying to, avoid the minefield of potholes. And now every day you're hearing about potholes. And yes, we gotta talk about these things. And I would never tell anybody what not to talk about, because at the end of the day, government must be held accountable. All right, but now we find ourselves in a very similar position that we were in, not in 2018, but in 2008. And this is what I find interesting. Sometimes, I may have been alive too long, and I often make comparisons between things. All right. But in 2008, we had a decision to be made as a country. Are we going to keep Owen Arthur or not? And the Barbadian public decided that they were not going to keep Owen Arthur. And in a democracy, that's within our rights. And that's where we are. That's where I see this current iteration at again. Are we going to keep a good prime minister or not? Again, I am not advocating for any government, but I'm saying from my heart what I feel is the best thing for Barbados at this point in time. And the fact that I'm wearing white lipstick is just accidental.
Are you sure?
All right.
Are you sure?
Good.
For that.
But let me continue. We had a decision to make, and I would say this again. I respect what's his name? Sorry, not what's his name. The great Earl Walton Barrow. as our first prime minister, our father of independence, the guy who the gentleman, the man, the giant who gave us free education, free healthcare, who really charted the course for Barbados. I have a lot of time for him. All right. But as far as I'm concerned, I believe that Owen Arthur may have been the best prime minister that this country has ever had in modern times. I feel like he ushered in a new era for Barbados, and I feel like the work that the Motley administration is doing right now is simply a continuation of that work. In fact, not simply, it really is like an explosion of that work that was started by Owen Arthur. All right. And I find that we are at that crossroad again. And I remembered back then saying we are making a mistake. And if anybody can tell me that Barbados has been the same since or better since, and the only time that Barbados has started to turn around is right now. I'm a millennial. All you here are millennials also, right? And if y'all honest, we never catch a break. We have not caught a break.
Ayo, you ain't gave me a chance to.
This is the Ayo show tonight. This is not just politics. This is like 10 minutes.
This feel like the Barbados Labour Party election broadcast. They should get you to write it.
Let me look at comments.
They should get you to write the broadcast for the Barbados Labour Party, because obviously whoever they're employing is not doing a good job.
I'm gonna look at comments because I've been purposely trying not to say anything about politics on my Facebook page because I don't want it back and forth and caught up.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that at the moment.
It's just coming out to me right now, right? But I'm gonna stop a little bit. Y'all can respond.
A little bit, but that was a monologue if there ever was one.
It's running.
The 10 minutes you can't get a word in. Can't get a word. Not a word. Terry, I will let you go because at that point, I feel exhausted already. Sure done. We done.
All right, just pushing back a little bit. I mean,
I wish it was a paid campaign ad. I swear to God, but
yeah,
that's just how I'm feeling right now.
There are a lot of positives. There are a lot of positives. Obviously, you just outlined a number of the positives. We have the debt restructuring, which seemed to have gone very well. The reduction in debt to GDP, which of course is obviously a positive. But just to bring some balance, we do have some issues.
So there are a lot of things. Go ahead. There are a lot of things. But go ahead.
Cost of living remains an issue, and I guess the government has to try to tackle this to the ground. I've not seen it raised as an issue in the campaign thus far because people are being distracted with a whole host of other things like criticizing the Internal Motor Commission, which I don't think makes a lot of sense, as opposed to fixating on the bread and butter issues, which economy. So and of course the cost of living in particular, which is an issue that is not peculiar to Barbados, is an issue that plagues the entire world. So as a little defense of the government there. But yeah, so these are some of the other side of the coin in terms of issues that have popped up over the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Ronnie.
Ronnie, go ahead.
No, sorry about that. I've been hearing everything. It's just that there was just a slight child issue. Anyway.
Okay. Ronnie, we get our question at 20. Go ahead.
There was an explosion of crayon. Anyway, what was I saying? No. Look, I think you have to be fair that yes, this government have done some things, and I would say that being objective, and I know some people don't or can't differentiate because they maybe not be able to do it, that you can be objective and you can support a party. I think the two things can work, but people just don't seem to understand that. The other thing I would say is a little kind of prologue, because I know you had your little monologues. So I feel like I got getting something.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. 2 minutes. I find it funny when people are in social media spaces or otherwise, brass stats, whatever, critiquing these people that they call yard foes, and they're supporting parties and blah blah blah. Yet on one hand, you have people going, voter apathy is increasing, But there you have people who are dedicated to a democratic process. You might not like the party they support, but that's their choice. If they want to put on a yellow shirt every day of their life, or they want to put on yellow clothes, that is up to them. If they want to wear red clothes every day of their life, that is up to them. The reality of it, in some ways, it is because of those dedicated party supporters that the democratic process can keep ticking over. Yes, you would like an extension, you want more people involved, but it's getting out of hand the moment somebody says, "Oh, I'm a Dem," you're a yard foul. If you say it's a B, as a yard foul. And then if you identify as one party or the other, but then you critique the party you identify with, all of a sudden you're with the other side. You're like, so wait, you can't like some things and not like some things. What happened to be able to say, well, yeah, Io could talk about this, and I'm sure she'll find something to critique about the Barbados Civil Party. But somebody was aware, why thought she was a B? How she just cursed the party? No, she's not cursing the party. That's just objective critique. And I don't know whether our politics has become this really polarized, and I think it's headed into a dangerous kind of Trumpian territory. I see the high rhetoric about electoral frauds and issues, and I really think, I know I've said it before, I've said it publicly, it needs to stop. That really needs to stop, because once you open that door, I don't think you can close it. We've seen what's happened in the US. This concept of America first, and then you see concepts roll up, Barbados first. I'm like, really? Like, no, that is not where we should be going at all. And we have to be very careful what we're doing in our politics. Now, in terms of the Barbados Civil Party, the Barbados Civil Party has got a lot of things wrong. A lot wrong. We can go through them, for this evening. I want to start from 2018. I could go back to EduTech. I would say that that's probably been one of the most disastrous projects for Barbados. And it's actually, I could sit down, we could do a whole show and trace why our educational system is in ruins now, because of the failure of EduTech. If EduTech had worked, the Barbados education system would not be where it is now. And nobody can debate that with me, because the stats, the data, it did not work. We can blow it up, we can talk about it. And that reformation that should have happened then did not happen. We keep catching up. We've been playing catch up since then to now. And it's still not, we're still in a bad place when it comes to educational development. And that's a fair assessment. Does that mean that the Prime Minister and Mayor Motley isn't competent? No, but on education, big failure. Education now, continued failure. And I see Terry is shaking here, but these are truths. These are hard truths. And you don't have to like the government to realize that education reform is not working. That's just where we are. And anybody who knows me, education is my pet. That's a pet peeve and a pet area of mine. So we can talk about economy. We're going to talk about debt, and I'm sure IO is going to come that the debt get paid down. But I got some other stats for you. So we can trade some shots tonight, and we will see how we get out. And I realized, IO, you got these subliminal messages of me in the background. I know what you play. I didn't want to see that interview. Why you playing that interview, IO? Please take it off my screen. No, but I don't want. So I gonna put up. You know what I can do? I can put up some subliminal messages of Frondell. I can put up Frondell. I can get a thing in Frondell and run the reel in the background.
Anything you want to put up. I was watching it, and what I was actually watching Spartacus, and Terry said, "Ayo, what's in your background? There's blood and gore." I was like, "Oh shoot."
So
find something else. Find something else.
I was watching. This is a very good interview. And
you watch this interview, Ronnie?
No, I did not watch.
No, and every Barbadian should watch it. Go ahead.
I did not watch the interview, and Ayo can tell you, right, that I told her exactly what was in the interview. Ayo can confirm this without watching it. Every play I give Ayo the lines, I give Ayo the taglines, I give Ayo the synopsis. I walked Ayo through the entire interview. And I can tell you, let me tell you what I told her. I said, Prime Minister is going to begin with a joke, some light humor about her Barbadianness. She's going to cut into her Barbadian accent. Then she's going to switch it up with that wonderful British London School of Economics. I am a lawyer. Look, I smart. Don't come to me with this. I'm a black woman here, and I am a smart one. That's what she's going to come with. Then she's going to switch up to like, let me get serious conversation. The tone is going to change. She's going to do inflections. She's going to talk about climate change, the vulnerability of small countries, how we're on the back foot, the world system is unfair.
You were almost right, but it was a fantastic interview.
I'm not taking away from the interview. I'm just telling you, I know exactly the playbook. And if you anybody in politics who don't know the playbook, well, then you shouldn't be in politics, because that is exactly what's going to happen. And then she's going to take him through Barbadian culture. He's going to bring him through some critique of Africa. She's going to offer a powerful solution for what Africa should be. Where does that tie into the Barbados and the Caribbean? She's going to show the world is problematic, but she's going to end on a note of, we can do this together. Positivity. Let's walk in the sun. Boom. And that is the interview that the Prime Minister will do. I have not watched it. I'm
fantastic. You're almost there, but it was a lot deeper, and I think that every Barbadian should watch it, especially during this period of time, because you get a sense or feel for the continuity of what she's about with her transformation efforts running.
And I think, and this may color what you're going to say, Ayo, but I think that's it. I do not think the Prime Minister is transformative. And let me explain why. I think the Prime Minister can speak the language of transformation. She knows the vocabulary of transformation. And that vocabulary comes from someone who's gone to the London School of Economics with people who, Harold Leslie would have tread those walls. I know what we're talking about. These very revolutionary kind of socialist philosophers and welfare thinking persons. So she has the language of a revolutionary. She has the dressing, the PR of a revolutionary. But I think the Prime Minister is very conservative and very safe. And if you look at any biographer of Margaret Thatcher, it tells you the same, People used to think Margaret was this bigger than large life. You read in data how cautious and how safe she was. Everything was micro-tested. And then, so let me give you another example to put it in context before you respond. Take Erskine Sandiford, the language of conservatism, the effect of revolutionary, because he was one of the most revolutionary education ministers. They didn't have the language of a revolutionary. They didn't look like he was a man about change, but actually he delivered tremendous change in education, which we're still benefiting from. And I think we need to really draw that out when it comes to the Prime Minister. There's a lot of talk. If she could follow through with, I would say, 2 of the ideas that she's probably get before breakfast, Barbados will be a better place. The problem is always been the Prime Minister's failing, little follow through, or rather little follow through and not enough support around her. Combination. I think it's a little bit of both. Because when you're leading and you generated ideas, and the Prime Minister has brilliant ideas, you can't show that. When you read, that's a bad idea, but when you look at the result, where does it lead you to? That's
all right. I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you sometimes. But
sometimes, only sometimes.
Sometimes they follow, not only sometimes, a lot of times follow through are necessary for certain things. The Prime Minister can't do all the work. That's number one. Number two, Barbados itself is a very conservative country. And if you change too fast, Ronnie, the Prime Minister moved to a parliamentary republic, and you were one of the people who were jumping up and down like, no.
I wasn't jumping up and down. You got it wrong. I was like, yes. But actually, you're being conservative about it. That was my problem, because you weren't doing far enough. And I did a poll and a survey, and people wanted her to go far. When you think that people gave her 30-0, it was let me finish this. People gave her 30-0 to transform. We didn't put you there to become. If you wanted conservative, nobody would have given you all. The point was, all the talk that you had, we wanted you to do it. And you haven't. It's 2 terms.
You might have, but there were not, and it might be unfair to you, because I was just teasing you, because you were in the news a lot around the same time.
Yeah.
But hold on. But there were so many people, and to this day, there are so many people who are still saying that Barbados should not have turned republic.
I don't know. There was a survey done, I think, by Barrow Giles and Professor Barrow Giles and Professor Devonish, And I think I have to find it. I just remember it. So there were surveys done, and people were supportive of republicanism. People
Of
had
course.
a problem with
Uh,
the type, and people wanted a say in it. That was the problem. So when we get to governance, we can talk about that. 2 seconds. My children are quiet, so that made me something.
All right. But what I would say too about this is something that people always want is perfection, right? People always want perfection. I'm always like, you know what? You're never gonna have perfection. You have to do something, all right? But you can't say, well, I'm not doing anything until it's perfect.
Right. You
And
don't
I
let
wholeheartedly agree with that.
don't let the perfect be enemy of the good. Of
Yeah,
course, like of course we can't agree totally with what Ronnie said, but we can't be surprised with Ronnie's
I know.
perspective. Is like the opposite side of yourself, which is
But he's
why
here.
he's yeah, which is exactly why he's here to bring that balance. But to be fair, Ronnie mentioned a number of things.
Danya coming with those things just now. Just let Ronnie stop fight up with me. Go ahead, Terry. Sorry.
Right. So yeah, to be fair to the again on the other side, to be fair to the Barbados Party, and to be fair to the Prime Minister, of course, as you said, Barbados is a conservative country, and you in order to move the country forward, you're going to have to move it forward incrementally. In some instances, right? Some things need to be completely changed, but definitely incrementalism is not always a bad thing, right? It can be a good thing. And with
I'm not
respect
even
to
an incrementalist. You know this.
I know you. You're definitely not incrementalist at all.
It's just
Um,
that sometimes I have to be logical
right, but
about
with
what
respect to
works and what can work. Yeah.
over the last couple of years, I think we've had tremendous performance with respect to the economy for sure. We've seen, as you will point out, a reduction in the overall debt of the country. Right? That is no mean feat. Debt restructuring it wasn't easy, but it's nothing that we should
Yeah,
stop.
let's talk about that. What's running in the background? Because I hear you, Trisha, where you're talking about government, where you're talking about government operations change, and I want to put it. I don't know if I'm making myself clear when I talk about this because it seems that people do not want to talk about the fact of where we were coming from, and I feel like a lot of the transformation that we are looking for, it couldn't happen. It can't happen in a vacuum, and there's just certain things that had to be done first. At least that's the way I see it. All right, but anyway, we can agree to disagree. So let's talk first about the economic wins. Ronnie, you could come back in because I know you can hear me in the background when you're ready to tell me that I'm talking nonsense. Debt restructuring and birth. When the government took over this country in 2018, they inhabited a debt to GDP ratio of, as you can see on the screen, 175%, one of the highest in the world. But through the BERT and the IMF support, they successfully restructured the domestic and the external debt, and they brought that down. They brought the ratio really down to 102% as of last year, and that's what where I did my research there because obviously 2026 just started. All right, I think that's a good start. That's a good and as we go further on and we look at Barbados being on the EU grey list and this body blacklist and so forth, all of this ties in. All right. So there's certain things that had to be done first before we could do the other things, and I will get into those things. And why I'm talking about these things too is because yes, the bread and butter issues are important. All right. Sometimes all people know is that they're hungry, they this, they that, they not got enough money, and those are real issues. Those are real issues. Those bread and butter issues. You cannot ignore them. But at the same time, I feel sometimes where the government itself feels is to tell people and to explain to the people how these things that they're doing, these monumental things as I see it, that they have done over the period, how that ties into their very bread and butter issues. And I do not feel that they're done that well. And this is why sometimes we're having the problem. All right. And of course, we have people with their own interests in things like somebody want to argue about a constitution, which is important, don't get me wrong. Somebody want to argue about this and they get tired and all these things. But we have to look, were these things necessary? did these things transform Barbados? Did we change since 2018 until now? That's the question. Go ahead. Huh?
You back on your platform again?
Apparently. But go ahead if you want. Cut me off. It's fine.
No, I don't. I don't disagree with what you're saying. Like I said, the economic restructuring that is important. It was tough, but the reduction in the overall debt is a positive, and it was a lot of hard work. We have our new governor of the central bank, Dr. Kevin Greenwich, who's I think doing a fantastic job there. Having left the IMF and did a good job with Barbados in that respect, and also is now our government central bank.
And what that was important too, Terry. Now you mentioned Dr. Greenwich. This is another thing that I have a lot of respect for how she handled this debt restructuring. All right, any politics student, any student doing things like sociology, social studies, whatever in that general area. They will touch on debt restructuring and the IMF programs and what they've done to this region. The Prime Minister was actually very smart to bring Kevin on board, as an economist at the time with the IMF, because as a Barbadian, he actually has a vested interest in the country, and he would want the decisions that he would make, the acts that he would make for the country. They would be coming. They'll be favorable towards the country, if that makes sense, all right? Rather than if it was just on transient foreign economists who don't have an interest in the country in that way. And this is not to say that he can fulfill the IMF's needs and wants or whatever else. You're the economist on this thing, so you will have the right terminology there, all right? But I feel like that was actually a smart move on her part to have a Barbadian in that position working, because we've seen the devastation that's happened in the 80s and stuff in Jamaica and so forth. All right. And yes, we can get the pain, but you see, that's the problem when you're trying to bring our economy back, when you're trying to bring back the social and everything, you can get the pain. I feel the pain too. I'm not wealthy by any stretch of the imagination, so I feel the pain too. Like, we can't ignore the pain. The pain has to be addressed by the government itself. All right. But we still have to be honest, and we really still have to be real about those changes that took place. Yes, Ronnie, you come to go ahead.
Yeah. No. Oh God. Well, I was only trying to referee. I wasn't really supposed to be putting.
I want you referee. What you talking? I want you referee. The audience is the referee.
I am not.
Okay, on the economy, Ronnie. What were your critiques of the government?
So I heard IO, and I agree that the debt in 2017, 2018 was high, but I think what a lot of people fail to acknowledge is that you had a debt restructuring, which basically, once you drill down on the details, shifted debt from domestic to external. So the Democratic Labour Party at that time depended a lot on domestic debt in terms of the debt market to borrow money. The Barbados Labour Party came in, that market was tapped out, so they switched to the international market. So now when you look at the Barbados debt profile, the debt has basically moved from domestic to external. So for example, and this was 2017, 2018, the gross central government debt was $14.8 billion. And in 2022, it was about 13.7 billion. External debt was about 3 billion in 2017, 2018. By 2022, it was 4 billion. So you can see the shift. Domestic debt was 11 billion in 2017, 2018. By 2022, it had gone to 9 billion. So domestic debt was coming down, external debt was going up. And you recognize really that's what happened in terms of how the Barbados Labour Party went about restructuring the debt profile.
As you said yourself, the local debt market was tapped out. So
yeah, I'm not knocking them. I think sometimes is where people feel like, oh, you're being hypercritical. It's just the reality. And if people have to understand that is a valid critique. Yeah, I'm not because the reality is where you're going to get the money from. It had to come from somewhere.
And at what rate?
I was just going to say that. At what rates?
Yeah, because a lot of the rates that the government was able to borrow at, particularly this Barbados Party government, those rates were extremely low relative to what was happening before, even with respect to the local borrowing and the Democratic Labour Party government did also borrow internationally at very high rates. Remember the Credit Suisse deal. These were very high rates under the Barbados Party. Yes, they shifted a large proportion of the debt externally, but it was with the IMF at very concessionary rates. So you have to be fair about that for sure.
No, I'm not being unfair to that, but I'm saying just be also fair that you can't make arguments that somehow the debt has been removed or we are somehow in a magically different situation. The profiling, let me explain. The profile of debt has changed. The debt has remained a constant. So what really the Barbados Labour Party has not solved the growth problem in Barbados. They've not solved the growth conundrum because there are really only three ways that you can get money. You're either gonna borrow it, you're gonna tax, or you got to earn it. If anybody can magically discover a fourth, I would be happy to hear it. But those are typically the three ways. So the problem with the Barbados economy, whether BLP, DLP, is growth. Growth is a problem. And growth is tied to our productivity challenge. So productivity in Barbados is down compared to say productivity in the 70s. So we've got 70s. We've got issues with productivity. We've got issues with growth that no recent government has been able to solve. And that's a fair assessment. So on one hand, you can say, yay, Barbados Labour Party, you took us off the debt cliff, you restructured the debt profile. But what the Barbados Labour Party has done is just given us a little bit more reprieve until we try to figure out this growth thing. And they've not, in the 8 years, figured it out. So you see all kind of announcements, biotech this, culture industries here. It's almost like they're searching for this magical thing that will give us that, that boost. Because when you look, and this is something, I don't know if you've looked at this, Terry, the growth challenge between the 80s and the 2000s, the reason Barbados is in this position, Barbados had 15 years of real GDP decreases. So when we start to compare to like Singapore and all these countries that booming, you know how much Singapore had? 4 years from 1981 to about 2000 of 2021 of GDP decreases. We had 15 years of GDP. That means 15 years of no growth. Singapore had 4 years of no growth in the same time period. So countries like Dominican Republic, Mauritius, all of those countries, ridiculously low GDP.
What is unique about those countries and Barbados? What is the difference between those countries and Barbados, Ronnie?
Productivity.
Productivity
is a big thing.
It's a huge thing. But that's not the only thing. A lot of it comes down to governance, Ronnie. A lot of it, and this is the thing that I was talking about earlier.
So this is exactly where you back to where I was talking about. Okay.
When I came to the age of maturity, because I have to take this back there. When I came to the age of maturity, the Prime Minister was Owen Arthur. As a child, the Prime Minister was the guy that took us into 91, 8% cut. I saw the devastation and the adults around me and dealing with that and everything. All right. So for me, I came to the age of maturity under Owen Arthur, and Barbados transformed. All right. In 3 terms, y'all decided, okay, we need to change. We have to go into election. He was there too long. That's how we make our decisions. We don't think about continuity. And when you have prime ministers constantly having to deal with, and this is why I know, Terry, I ain't want to go down the lane of democracy and stuff now, because you know how you feel about that. But I don't want these people to feel that I is a complete anarchist. But when prime minister has to be constantly thinking about, I gotta win the election. A lot of these programs get tossed out by the time the next government comes in because y'all decide, I don't like this body no more. And this we make these decisions on some willy-nilly things. I feel like we need to. I often think about where would we be if Thompson had lived. All right, would he have been able to take Barbados where it needed to go? And also, if we hadn't changed to Owen. changed from Owen, sorry. All right. And I feel like at this time, I just feel like we need as a millennial, we need some continuity for a minute. We just need to see somebody carry out the program that they start. We need to see them finished. All right. And we need to get past the whole, because every time it's the whole rebuild again. We gotta rebuild what was destroyed. That has been my experience based on the time that I've been alive and politically aware. It is like it get built up, it get knocked back down. We gotta rebuild it again, to get cut out again, the back and we back to the same thing. And we can't continue like this because then we can't become this little Singapore that people like to talk about. It will never happen.
All right, Ayo.
Good.
Yeah, there's some big differences between a macroeconomy like Barbados and Singapore. Of course, you know, we share similarity in terms of size, but Singapore, much larger population. The nations around it are very large. It's a trading hub. Barbados could be as well, but we have a very small population. And of course, this means that the skills, this also has a knock-on effect in terms of the skills that we would have.
Religion, culture, all these things makes a huge difference. I know they all are all about the numbers. Y'all don't really think about the things around outside of the numbers, but the type of research that I think about a lot more than just the numbers. The only reason I'm dealing with numbers is simply because y'all like the numbers.
No, of course, Ayo, you have to think about more than the numbers. I agree with you.
More than just the numbers. The numbers can never, ever, ever tell the whole story.
No, and that's true because culture will eat strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So you have to consider the culture. I was just to show the issues of the growth challenges that Barbados has in comparative countries like Mauritius, Singapore. Even when you look at, say, other countries in the Caribbean like Antigua, Barbuda, St. Vincent, they have had Belize, they have had less GDP decreases in that interim period from, say, 81 to 2021. And when you have to go back and look at the record of someone like Lloyd, I think, you know, Lloyd was a transformative prime minister. I remember saying this at his death for a lot of reasons. Not only education, you had the social partnership, you had a kind of template IMF program for small island developing states, you had the recognition for the first time of SIDS, the very thing that the prime minister is now, you know, riding the global stage on. That was something that Sir Lloyd did. He brought SIDS to Barbados. Remember that big conference? Remember the whole thing that they had at the what was it called back then?
I get you trying to.
No, I'm not trying. I'm just saying you have to appreciate.
Done it at the level that it's being done.
Of course, and that is fine. Yeah. But that could not have happened, and we have to appreciate this. Sometimes we don't. Supporters on both sides. Governments in Barbados are continuity. The reality is the government sometimes would get on the platform, curse this policy, that policy, then go in when they become government and just get on the road with the same thing. The same very thing that they would have gotten criticized, the same like the election and getting there, look at the cabinet document.
I don't think we should throw it out. In fact, there have been times where they throw things that were good for the country for reasons that they made for the same, you know, division nonsense. I think if something is good, like a lot of what's happening now, let's go on with some of these things that are happening now because I don't want these 2 hours to be done. I'm not going to touch on every single thing that I have here, but I don't want these two hours to go and we haven't, you know, gone through some of these things. We started with the economic, all right? And
so for the economy, what grade? You know, I'm a teacher, so I like to give a grade. Terry too. In fact, all 3 of us are teachers here. So on the economy, if I'm being honest, I would say a C plus.
You gotta give an A on the economy.
No, not. I just explained to you how the profile just get reshaped, and you've not found the growth solution. When you find the growth solution, that's an A. Okay, if you gotta break it down, I could give you an A for that. I would give you an A for no, Terry. I be honest. I could give an A for that restructuring.
2 weeks import cover. 2 weeks import cover, right? You found the country in a situation where you cannot borrow. perennial downgrades, right? You've now had.
You can't borrow $10 from nobody as a country.
Terry, I feel like this is two B's versus a D. I don't understand.
We gotta be fair.
Listen, all sports aside, because I know some people the other thing is a B right now too. I tell you, I'll be this election. I've been here for 5 years, and that's it's my right to be president.
No. Okay.
Tomorrow, I'm gonna be a B. And today, I'm a B.
Terry, on that, I would give for that component. I would say a minus. But overall economy. But the overall economy, I still getting a C plus. I ain't just picking and choosing that component, and that component is what brings a C plus.
I can continue. We can continue, but I will be fair. You know, you have your academic license, academic freedom to grade them.
I wouldn't give them an A plus right now, but I would give them an A for number, not just for the debt restructuring. Why I wouldn't give them the A plus is because at the domestic front, in terms of the fact that the cost of living is still very high, it's very real that people are struggling. There are people who are struggling in a 2 ways about that. We can, that's what it is. And at some point in time, we have to, and there's some things in here that they're doing, I think, in terms of the cooperation with Guyana. Those are things that I think are positive. Let me see if I can find it. I put it in here in my notes. I said I'm not gonna get to talk about every single thing in here, and even though
all right, so that's a
you don't try to
from. I didn't disturb you.
This point,
a C plus from me, and then what from you, Terry? A B.
I would give on the debt restructuring. All things.
What do you mean the whole thing?
I'll give them an A on debt restructuring for sure, right? Although I didn't agree with everything there, defaulting on the bill.
Yeah, I think the defaulting was not advisable, and that was not a smart move.
That was a bit tough, but yeah.
Defaulting on the
law. Yeah, that's the one that we actually discussed that here, didn't we? I think.
Yeah, all things considered, I'll give them a B plus, right, on the economy.
So we got an A, a B, and a C minus. If we grade that together, average that's a B minus.
B plus.
No, that'll be a B minus. That might bring them to a B minus.
That sounds like a B.
That sounds like a B.
Sounds like a B to me. All right, on to the next topic.
On to this one.
Let me talk about this one before I go back to the economy. There's something very interesting that's happening right now in terms of the St. Barnabas Accord, and this is the thing. Like I don't want to say these things sound really good, because they do. But my thing is, I really hope that they happen in the way that they're intended, because it can bring so much relief to so many people. It can cut the cost of government having to before me rant again, because that's me ranting again. Barbados, it's called the St. Barnabas Accord. Come under the Bracing Initiative. Boom, boom, boom. Right, the St. Barnabas Accord, CARICOM Corporation. Signed by Prime Minister Motley and President Ali of Ghana. The agreement created the legal framework for the one food storage and distribution hub. It treats the two countries as a single space for food and production. That is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
God, remember that you're on the show, Ayo. That is fantastic if it works, all right? They're saying that there's a land labor swap between Ghana will provide the vast fertile acreage which Barbados lacks, and Barbados provides the logistical hub, access to capital, the high-end tourism markets for the finished products, etc. And part of the partnership will be located in Ghana, part of it will be located in Barbados. So there's this massive cold storage that Barbados is going to provide to Ghana for them to store the onions, potatoes, carrots, and meats, and so forth. And there's all based on that, if they import in bulk like that, obviously the price was stabilized somewhat, and because it's from a sister state also, rather than in these little small quantities from bigger countries. Anyhow, so the government can use that terminal basically to buffer the local grocery prices. All right. The other thing is the regional service, the regional ferry service, call it a sea bridge something like that. Which I think is like the biggest point here, and I really hope that it works out. From my research, is saying that the part that is operational is the section that basically brings in food and so forth. That part is operational right now, but in terms of moving people, the cargo side is operational, but in terms of moving people, that side is not operational. Like, yeah, and I really hope that they will get that up and running. All right, because moving through the Caribbean has to get cheaper. Definitely has to get cheaper. And that ferry can make a difference.
We've been hearing about fairy tales for a long time, Rayo.
Exactly.
Which is why I did the research to see if it's operational. And
it's not.
It is. No, it
is.
is.
I'm talking about for people. I'm talking about for people.
Side is operational. That's like what the research has shown, that the cargo side is operational, but when it comes to the people side, they're still working out the logistics for that.
And that needs to happen. All right, let me go on to the next thing.
Like, dying too sexy for that?
No. I agree that that's an important thing, and sometimes these important things go missing or fall through the cracks because enough work is not being done or pressure applied. We've been hearing about the movement of people for ages. I think I've talked about it on here before that. That is literally my dog who just tried pushing a small table.
Children in your 20s.
She literally pushed the table from one end to the other end. Just
go ahead, though, Ronnie.
Anyway, no, we've heard about the movement of people, and we know that there are enough surveys that if you can get people moving in the Caribbean, in addition to cargo, it's worth billions in unlocking for Caribbean economies. That's why it's so important to get that aspect done. And really, CARICOM needs to get up the game, and those who've been talking the game needs to really put the foot down and do something about it, because we've been talking. There's so many studies done on this. I think it was that one by Dr. Justin Ram, on this for the CDB, which is an exceptional piece of work, if I remember reading it, showing exactly the kind of revenue generation that can come from freedom of movement. So whenever I hear people talking about freedom of movement in negative terms or trying to decry the freedom of movement, it worries me from the point of view that we are one Caribbean people, but there's also a real economic upside to the free movement of people in the Caribbean that we really have to embrace.
So we should disabuse ourselves of the ideas like ever so welcome wait for a call, right, Ronnie?
Oh Jesus! Why are you being messy?
I'm just saying.
That was Terry's last week. No, you can.
I'm just saying. All right, and this is why I was kind of excited about that too, because it's Ghana, and Terry, back then how I felt about that whole. That was absolutely crazy to me, because these are our people, these are our brothers, they're our sisters, and look, full circle, here we are. All right. Anyway, moving on from that.
Maybe before we move on, we could probably ask the audience what they think about what grade would they give the government as it pertains to the economy. So
they're grading. We ain't gonna ask them. This audience for true. Them already grading.
Yeah, somebody said a C minus.
Somebody said C minus.
They started well, but then they're falling off. So at least I get in some agreement here. It's and being honest, I think too, if politicians were being more honest about where the government does well, doesn't do well, they might actually capture those folks.
So they had to give them a B. Very good.
Because he agreed with you. I don't understand. I can't be right. No. I think if politicians would really, speak more fairly, they might be able to capture that group in the middle. I always think, your base is your base. They're with you. Really, when you're appealing, as much as you're appealing to your base, you're also trying to get those undecided voters who kind of do what we're doing here. They'll sit down, wait out, and like, I'll give them a C there, and then I'll give them a B. And those are the voters that vote either B or D, and they're fluid. They don't hold to a particular party. They just measure and weigh out things as they are, and really those are who elections are won on. They aren't won on the core party votes, because the core base will be the core base. The core base isn't going anywhere per se. It's that swing voter in the middle, that 20% or so, because it's roughly 40 or 30 on each side, and then you get the other 20 to 30 in the middle that we're typically fighting for. So these kind of conversations more. Are you going to invite the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition on your show? If they would come, we could spare half an hour. I know the campaign is busy.
We will have them. Listen, what y'all think about the changes? Because it's also something that's important. Because obviously, sorry, me finish one thought before I start another. The changes to the NIS, and the pension, the changes that are happening here. Let's talk about some of them first. So I can break them down so the audience can catch up on what I'm talking about also. So we know that in 2021, one of the things that happened there before we get into NIS is national minimum wage. Now, let me tell you, I will argue for y'all all day, not with. I would argue for y'all all day that minimum wage should be higher. All right. But what I will also argue is that there was a time in Barbados where there was none. I told Terry this story and he was laughing at me so bad. But I remember when I was 18, because I had this idea back then that I'm a fantastic cook, if I say so myself. And I had this idea that I wanted to go into cooking. And I got this job in a restaurant, and me with my little 18-year-old self, probably 98 pounds, was stirring 3 big, huge pots of cuckoo a day. All right? And I worked at this restaurant every day, going to the restaurant, and I stirred a big pot of cuckoo. And feeling proud of myself. My cuckoo is so good. The people love it. Because one in the morning, one in the afternoon, then one for the evening crowd. At the end of the week, I got my paycheck. And I was feeling so good. I didn't even open it. I got home and I opened it, or I got outside or something and I opened it. And my pay was $85.32. And I would always remember that. And right there and then I went back to school because I realized that cooking wasn't going to work out for me, right? If that was going to be my salary going forward. And I believe I cried too because it was ridiculous and it was some excuse that she gave me or whatever. But whatever. So the point I'm making here is without a national minimum wage, what actually happens is that the youth get exploited, young people get exploited. All right, people pay on what they feel like, people pay on when they feel like, and all these types of things that happen all the time. All right. So anyway, we can argue about whether it should be higher or not. Right now, I think it is 10. This is saying 1050 based on the last numbers that I saw, but I'm pretty sure I saw somewhere that's like 1071 or something now. Everybody should, I would argue $20 for everybody, but that's just me. And can we afford it? Whatever. All those things can be worked out. But what I'm saying is that it's important to actually have one, and then the pension reform. Go ahead, Ronnie, if you come to say something about the minimum wage.
Yeah, I will never disagree with the minimum wage because I remember, like you, when I was working in the UK, when I was at university, and I used to do part-time jobs. So I used to make coffee. So I can still make a mean coffee. Actually, that's probably where my coffee habit comes from. Probably to drink more than I sell. But anyway, let's not talk about that. And I used to make sandwiches and work in this little sandwich shop.
You were a barista?
I wouldn't go that far, but I could make a mean coffee. And I used to make sandwiches and stuff. And so I agree in terms of protection of jobs and that service in for minimum wage because I've done it. Stand on your feet for like honestly, I have so much respect and for folks in the service industry, having done it myself. Like it is not an easy job. You're standing on your feet. People are expected to be happy, social, smiling. As long as you're tired, you can't think, but you have to, keep going. So I agree with the minimum wage. What I had problems with is with the government's restructuring the INS, because the government wrote off some of that debt during to the NIS or to the NIS during the restructuring process, and that's what helped the from the restructuring side. And I think, and I've argued this, and I'm sorry, I like consistency, that maybe there should be a plan to pay back the NIS for what they took from the NIS, and that's a fair assessment. I don't think anybody can really argue with that. You can argue whether we can afford it now or whether, but I think that harmed and hurt the NIS. Anyone looking on would say, yeah, actually it did. You can't take out I think it was 1.3 billion. I can't have to remember the figure, and not hurt the fund and hurt the long-term ability of the fund. And then the fund we need to rethink the fund and how we do pensions, and whether we should try to support more private pensions, and again, how we do that. These are the kind of serious conversations that I think we should be having in this election cycle, because a lot of these, I think over the next couple of years, we have to make a lot of big decisions that we keep putting off, whether it's NIS, whether it is trying to right-size government, whether it is government priorities, how are we going to get sustainable investment in education, how are we going to get sustainable investment in transport. We keep kicking the can down the long grass, and eventually, you know what, we're going to run out of the grass to kick the can, or we just might run out of the can to kick anyway, because you can't keep putting off big decisions. We've seen it happen in other countries. You keep putting off decisions, a report here, a report there, some commission, 10 years, you're still trying to make a decision, and you're like, really? So on the NIS, I feel we really have to have some mature conversations about pensions and what are we going to do, because my generation, well, our generation is the ones that are going to be hurting. I have seen you made posts about baby boomers, and this is no diss to the boomers or people in their 60s or their 70s, but you have used a lot of resources. Like, let's be real, you've used a lot of the world's resources. You're getting really good pensions. Like, they're the last generation to get solid pensions. Our generation, get solid pensions in that way. We just aren't. We don't. And yeah, exactly. And I think
things, right, that we should be doing. Do you think we should be removing the cap on NIS contributions? Should we be increasing the rate for employers and rate for employees? What are some of the practical things should we be extending?
I think those are the kind of conversations that I would like to see us having in terms of options that we should be exploring. I'm glad you raised them, Terry, because those are exactly the things that.
Don't worry. They're enjoying themselves. They're healthy. The most important thing is that they're healthy.
Honestly, there's so many toys. This is just a small. There's so many toys here, right?
The table
and it's a small little, those little coffee tables that you put a drink on. A small tiny table.
It's just like the microphone picks it up. That's why it sounds so loud. Like probably in reality.
Oh God. So I think some of the things that you're mentioning there are the things that we have to have real discussions about and agreement as a country. I don't feel that we have these mature conversations during the election campaign, because the nature of election campaigns are more like a shouting match across the divide. It's just like people.
Also, what's catchy? What's gonna grab people's attention? Right
exactly. So we don't get them.
Hold on. Let me talk about names not being on the list. Names not on the list. They put it on in 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes actually. Let me talk about. That's the kind of thing, and it annoys me so much. And then this thing that, and I know I carry this conversation away because I don't want to forget it. Y'all know it's forget points, right? But let me just say this: I heard the opposition say that the government is illegitimate. I think that is like, and I'm really disappointed in Rob, because Rob, he's not somebody that I don't have respect for. If you understand the point I'm making. All right, he's somebody that I have some respect for professionally as a lawyer or what have you. I don't understand how he could say that the government is illegitimate government on thing just because of the election. You cannot get carried away like that, Because if the government is illegitimate, that means he's illegitimate because he came into power under this government. It's absolutely crazy to me, the kind of rhetoric that he's putting out there. And why it is a little bit dangerous for me, or not, it seems dangerous to me because the people that he that supports him, a lot of these, I don't want to talk bad about any person, but their views are not, thing that lean towards the whole conspiracy thing, and then this thing get pushed. It's very Trumpy, and that's why the Barbados Party is calling him Trump now, because it really is very Trumpy, and we can't lean towards that. Let's run a campaign that makes sense. Let's tell people about the issues. Let's tell people what you're going to do. Let's run a campaign like that. Now let's go down the road about the campaign. The election is rigged. Barbados don't rig elections. That's not our culture. Now let's go down the road about illegitimate government. Government was there for two things. 30 love. That can't be illegitimate. Let's go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
So I was just saying, I agree with some of the sentiment you share there, and I've shared it before. So I can't not agree with it. You have to really, really hone in that kind of language. Fight the campaign. Try your best to win. But do not try to, I would say, a scorched earth policy, because the very earth that you salt, and the Barbados Labour Party would have realized this is what came back to bite them on crime, because they salted the earth on crime. So when they got in and couldn't deal with crime, then it comes back an issue, because you said you got all the issues. You get out there and criticize in the most egregious ways, and the kind of this hyped up language, and then and so governments always have to be careful, because you might end up being government and then you can't deal with it. That's why I always talk about debt in such kind of measured terms, because at the end of the day, every government has to borrow. So you can talk about debt, this, debt, that, but then when you get here, you gotta go and borrow. How do you roll back, or how do you step back from that after you just criticize the nature of debt so badly? So you have to do things, and I think in a measured way. Yes, you can critique, but recognize if you try to salt the earth, well, actually, the earth that you're going to inherit is the same. How are you going to grow anything in it? So and if I said the most recent example is what the Barbados Labour Party's approach when they were in opposition to crime, and how that came back as an issue when they couldn't tackle crime in the way, because crime is a deep, multifaceted societal issue connected to all sorts of things, and they just couldn't move the meter on it, or at least as quickly as they would have wanted to. So you have to be careful.
Let's talk about crime, because you're on crime.
Yeah.
I know you have some statistics here about the work that has been done with respect to trying to arrest the problem of crime in Barbados. You want to go through that?
Upgrade the system, and I think that this is a good start. I have my views on the whole crime issue, especially with the type of crime that we're seeing right now. And I'll go right back, because I know y'all tell me for this. I go right back to the idea that we got about the so, I don't remember. I think it is Dwayne. What's Dwayne's last name now? Dr. Devenish?
Dr. Devenish, yeah.
I think it is him that did the research, but I could be wrong. Or it might be him and somebody else. But I mean, the research has been done, was being done, or was being talked about. Even if it wasn't actual research, the researchers were talking about it during that time. That these people, what was happening during the last decade was going to lead to an explosion of crime. Like, we knew it was going to happen, and a certain type of crime, because these people weren't in school. They couldn't go into school, right? There were no jobs for these young people. And I keep saying, we keep looking at things in a vacuum. Those people are now the 21 and the 22-year-olds that out there still doing nonsense. All right, and that's literally what has happened. Anyhow, and we can type out. Let's look at some of the things that Barbados Party have been doing. Upgrade the police service as we got there, transition. And you can look at this yourself. Some of these slides that I did, I'm actually gonna post them to this page, organize them, put a little bit more meat to it, so you guys can understand where these tie in. And I'm gonna post them to this page at a later date, not tomorrow, because tomorrow is crazy, but at a later date. All right. Let me see if I can find my notes here on crime, because there's a lot that I think that has happened in terms of crime. Where is it gone? I don't know how Terry can me to crime without carrying me there. Yes. All right. So we had what can be considered. Oh, I know what happened. I don't have the crimes in this particular note. I just put them in that thing. I had them in a different note. But that's okay. You can put them back at Terry, the crimes, so I can read from those if you don't mind. All right, so you can see the things that has been happening here. What I think the government has been doing is trying to empower the police to actually have the money and the manpower to deal with the issue, and that's a good start. Sidiata, I'm seeing some comments that you're making, and they're very good. There's a very great good conversation that you're having over there, and I want to come to some of your comments. Just give me a bit. Expanding the CID, increasing the allocation to the budget, police budget, so they can just do more. Basically, all of these are good things, I think, including the additional. There's a slide I have there with the additional judges and stuff, Terry. The additional justices. Where is it? Right, judicial upgrades. Replaced a 55-year-old statute to remove the property qualification from the clause, because if they call you to be a juror, you had to be somebody who is literally property. So all of these things will help to push the cases through and stop clogging up the judicial system. Amendment to the Firearms Act, because apparently you could be charged for a firearm, but you couldn't be charged for firearm parts, which is crazy to me. All right, because you could just pick down your gun and walk with it and say, well, I don't have a gun, I got parts for the gun. I don't even understand how that was on our statutes. Anyhow, increase the number of high court judges from 8 to 16 and the appeals from 5 to 6. All right, so there's some of the things that has happened in the judicial system. Yeah, that's the last slide on the judicial system, Perry, on crime. I think there's another one. All right. Be that as it may, I can post at another time all these things. But I think that the issue on crime isn't just gonna go away just like that. There's too much that needs to happen, and we can't say the government, but the government, the society, the community's got to figure out how to pull these people off the street, how to get them from engaging in the type of crime, because it's literally, crime has always existed, but it's a type of crime, the violent crimes, the robbings, the stabbings, and these kinds of things that's happened that tells me that it's a socio-economic issue, partly, and also a very lawless type of crime that's taking place also. So there's a lot that has to happen on that front, and I don't have the answers, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, to arrest the crime issues a little bit above our pay grade. But as you said, it's a symptom of the socioeconomic conditions of the country. It has its legacy also in the past, as you said. These young men, and they're predominantly men. They didn't disappear, right? They weren't able to go to university, and some of them, they were too young to go to university at the time, but they didn't have those prospects, and they've gotten into some unfortunate circumstances for themselves, mind bad company, engaging in the drug trade and whatever, right? And of course, we're seeing the results. It's not a nice thing, and it's something that we as an entire society and all of the institutions that are responsible for trying to indoctrinate the youth with the values that we like to have as a society, is something that we all have to be responsible for. So this includes not just the government, but includes, of course, the home. It includes the churches, it includes the schools. Everybody has a role to play in helping our society to tackle violence and crime issues. Running.
No, I agree. I agree with you in terms of crime being a issue that we have to have a kind of whole of society approach. And that term is thrown around a lot, whole of society, but we need to have an approach where all the different sectors are trying to fight crime. But I've said this before. I don't think you fight crime necessarily by directly fighting crime, because crime is a social issue. If you can fix the economy, you can provide good schools, good housing, things like crime tend to go down, because crime is a determinant, kind of a consequence of all the other problems. So when you have crime at that level, that's an indicator that your underlying metrics, if you like, as a society are in trouble, especially when it comes to education. And the fact, I think it was the IDB or the UN, their recent survey showed, is it three CXCs per student all over the Caribbean? Maths and English results are ridiculously low. So we have issues with reasoning and rationalization at the level of our young people. So how do we kind of pull them back from the brink? We have to create opportunities. We have to create real opportunities and real chances for them to have education, for them to re-enter the world of work, for them to have access to good housing, for them to have chances just to become really good citizens. So we have to really pull ourselves together when it comes to our kind of social issues. And that's where we are on crime. We can give the police more guns, we can buy more fancy cars, we can do all of those sorts of things, but that won't stop crime. That allows the police to fight crime. If you understand what I mean. So that to intercept crime, that allows them to do that, but the actual crime will still be happening unless you fix those kind of backroom issues. So to fight crime, it has to be a two-pronged approach. The kind of institutional, infrastructural things required for policing and for the courts. So I think someone on here said more magistrates, all those things, better court systems, et cetera. But the real fight goes on in the schools and in the households. So when we know that, for example, the prisoners in prison come from a particular set of schools. There are statistics on this. Therefore, we have to go into those schools and find out why are 90% of the prisoners from these particular schools. And then if you trace back, are those 90% of people from particular areas? Okay, are those particular areas? What are the issues? Are they from particular households? Do the people have jobs? Are they from households that have been welfare dependent for 3-4 generations? Does anybody in the house work? I mean, it has to be a very kind of minute going in to the homes and the society, trying to weave a kind of fabric of wholeness of these people's lives. And I think that's the only way we're going to fight crime. Workshops and,
managing the visit is very important too, because you can't got the same people back inside the court yesterday, next week, next month. It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. We have to interject into the households. There has to be like social interjection, like directly. If we know household A is problematic, all right, let me go in there. Let me find out what's going on. Who here does work? When's the last time anybody here worked? Okay, all right, you don't have a job. This doesn't work. Okay, who in here left school with CHCs? All right, we gotta find a way to get y'all trained. What do you like to do? Everybody wants to do something. Everybody has a dream about something. We just have to figure out. I know that approach takes time. And sometimes I think that's the short-sightedness of governments. They want big wins. They want a big headline project that can solve this. But that's not how this works. You literally have to give welfare, social agencies that power, that ability and the resources to go into those homes. Find them, because we know who they are. We know. Like, you can't give me statistics about prison and don't know who the people are.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No,
on this crime issue, what do you think of National Youth Service? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think National Youth Service is a great thing, and I remember
National Youth Service.
Yes, we're wrong. I remember the Democratic Labour Party they talked about it, and then they pulled back. I remember the Prime Minister has talked about it, if I even go back, and she pulled back as well, because again, this is the conservatism. Like, the reality of it is.
Let me say something though, Rodney.
But we have to have these programs.
But it has a lot to do with social. We cannot ignore the social fabric of this space.
I'm not ignoring it, but this is where we are.
hold on, my child is gonna go into the National Youth Service and run here. We're gonna say, who I got here? My child?
But they will, because when they say national, no, because everybody has to.
Country that is shaped how it has shaped put in this post-colonial space. That's very important.
No, I understand that, but actually, that's exactly a way. But that's exactly a way.
Conservative, because that is just not. That's simplifying the issue. That's why
I'm not, but I'm saying that's exactly a way to fight the same colonialism that you're talking about. Because if you're trying to fabric and weave a society together in a new way, a national youth service is a brilliant way. And I think maybe the connotations, maybe find a new word, I don't know. But every child should have some service activity at the end of school. Like, you should not go to school and not be in a club, something. You play the guitar, the steel band, you're in cadets, you're in 4-H. There is Key Club. I don't care what you do. Horse riding, farming, art. There must be something that a child. And so when I talk about a national youth service, there has to be a program that you can design around to bring out that talent, but make it in a way that every child has to do it. You know, me, you, Terry, we would have probably joined things because that's just who we are. So we joined clubs. We didn't need a national youth service to force us into a club. But the reality is some kids need that support and they don't have it at home. So the infrastructure has to be provided because they're not going to go and join it on their own. The parents probably don't care if they're joining it or not. They probably can't get the bus fare or the support to, get to the club and come back. And clubs, even if they say they're free, there's a little expense sometimes on ends. You're going to go to school. There's always things. So I think we can think about it not in the kind of term. I think when people hear national service, they think military and you're beating up the children and you're forcing them. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a way that we funnel all of our kids into some kind of productive activity. And you can't.
Being paramilitary though. I like the idea of it being paramilitary.
Because that's where you come from.
Not just because where I come from, is because I know the discipline that can be instilled within a person was in such an environment. And it's not just the discipline. Like sometimes the things that people find to be difficult to do, or they stress themselves out about or whatever. Because I've come through the military, the way of my brain has been shaped. It's like, I just went ahead and do it, and you just do it and move on. And I think that type of development that I got in the army was very, very critical. So I think that more people could benefit from it when they're very, very young, when the prefrontal lobe isn't fully developed as yet, and you can still shape them. But one of the things I want to say about crime though is that I know it's very topical right now. And because it's very topical, one of the things that we often do is that we discount all those other young people who are actually doing very, very well and doing some very positive things. And the reality is that there are more those than there are out there running about doing lawlessness, Terry's brother, how old is Kai? How old is he?
22.
18, 19. Doing very, very well. Just graduated university, got, I'm going straight into doing his master's. Is he 20 yet?
Yeah.
22, something, right. And there are a lot of people like that. I remember in 2018 during the election, there was a youngster that came to me because I was working in one of the constituencies. And this youngster came to me. He said, that everything that y'all doing, y'all aiming it at the disadvantaged youth as though we don't exist. So must I be disadvantaged, or must I be not disadvantaged, not the right word, at risk? Must I be at risk for me to get attention? And that's something that we tend to do as a society. We ignore all those other numbers who are actually doing so well, and we have so many of them. We have them in our own little circle, right? 3 of us. We can see them. They're not out there doing the lawlessness or what have you, and that doesn't mean that we are whatever. We're just average people, right? And we can see those young people doing really well. And I think that's one of the things that's why whenever I see young people doing well, I try to encourage them, because I feel that's important, because nobody recognizes you when you're doing well unless you come out at the top. That's the thing.
Correct.
But that person at the top is not the only person doing well. There's a whole slew of people that's coming underneath them. All right.
I know this might surprise you, and I'm going to give the Prime Minister props. This is probably the one thing that I thought she did well in her political career. Maybe you will find some others, but this one, EduTech, no. Education reform, no.
Just say A minus.
I give her a C minus on the economy.
You give her an A minus on that restructuring, Ronnie.
I give her, and that was tempered. That was, I know that A minus was tempered by the C minus overall. So don't try to sell me up the river. The youth development program, that was a brilliant initiative. So when Barbados designed that first iteration, I don't know, I can't speak to everything about it now, but I remember the first iteration of that, what the program was supposed to be. Over the years,
You mean the youth advance for?
No. I talk about this is when she was Minister of Youth. This is a long time ago. When they had the youth affairs, the youth development, and the youth officers that were, that whole direct intervention thing that I was just talking about, because that was what they used to do. Go into the communities, find and literally kind of directly intervene in those families, pull those boys into programs. So that's when you still got the youth sports program, and then you had the BDF sports program. So many young people could tell you about how their lives were changed and turned around. And those youth commissioners, yes, the original idea. And maybe now it's big morphed into something, but that concept of that direct intervention, and I would give her props for that. This is a long. We're talking about what? This is the 90s. This is probably the late 90s when and that model ended up being copied, because I used to do a lot of youth work. So that model was copied in St. Lucia. It then became a modeling across the Caribbean. And it was a brilliant idea.
Nothing wrong with replicating it again. If it works, there's nothing wrong with replicating it again. People don't say, it's original, because they all get really critical. But I don't care about that. It's not about if it's original. It's like, does it work?
Correct. And I think over the years, I'm not sure about what it does now. And remember, they used to have the youth business trust. Yeah, I talk about along. I go way back. Used to give the young people, and some of these programs exist, but I'm not sure if we've done audits to find out their what's the word? I'm looking for the word. How effective they've been, and how do we remodel them using same base concepts to meet the young people where they are today. So how does a youth development program designed in the 90s work in the 2000s, where young people now exist on social media? How do you engage them? Shorter attention spans, more issues to deal with than a youth commissioner back then would have probably had to deal with. So how do we look at these things? And I think sometimes we rush to throw everything out the window. I remember you still got the community development department. All of these things. I'm not saying we try to roll back the clock of time, because that's not going to work. But look at what these things used to do. What does a modern community development center in Barbados need to look like? I ain't talking about just a playing field, and how there's got these concrete breachers and a small smelly changing room with no proper facilities. How do you design? And maybe that's something that we could do. If I had a manifesto to put out, I would say I can bring young people. Let's have a design competition. We will sit down and we're going to design a community center. What do you want it to look like? When I say design, me draw it up. Show me the rooms, where the spaces, how do you interact? Because we build things and we don't design. We build things and throw them at people. Man, look, I build a building. Tech that. You're like, have you actually talked to the users of this building or this space of how it works for them? What does a modern community center need to look like? Should it have their case facilities for people so that they can bring their kids? Mothers who are at home during the first 1 to 2 years of the child's life and may not have cut off from social interaction. Where do they go for play groups? If you know about all of these are things that we gotta, and these are kind of conversations that we should be having during the election time. Yeah, what? I've not heard anything serious. I've not heard any serious conversations about youth development, sports development in this election so far.
Those conversations are happening. The election just started though. The people still registering and all kinds of stuff though.
With the election, we only got 2 weeks left.
I know.
Ain't that long. So if you don't start the conversation now, you're gonna wait till the night before.
Yeah,
That conversation has started in certain areas. I don't want to call it because I don't want to think for anybody. But the conversation has started in certain areas.
Okay.
Yeah, we really should have a conversation, national conversation about national youth service, as you said, Ronnie. And maybe at this point, our society is in a place where there'll be mass support for it. So we could have this discussion.
Let me shy away from them, Adrian, because y'all don't want to hear about that. If somebody go on a platform and start talking to you about the topics that we're talking about right now, y'all gonna go and buy a hot dog and drink and go and sit down until somebody come up there and say, "I hear up there by that woman." And all come back there. That's the nature of things.
I all has plenty of form. I also has plenty of form being on those platforms saying these things. Right, Ayo?
I don't know what you're talking about, but I know how these platforms go, and I know what.
No, we know Ronnie for sure. Ronnie has form.
Y'all dictate what they speak about. If y'all don't want to hear foolishness to the politics, we don't want to hear about who this and that. What we want to hear about are these things.
But Terry, you would have listened, I'm sure, to one or two of my speeches, and that's why I used to talk about sensible things. I never talk about it because my view is if you start doing it enough, and there's enough of us doing it, but the crowd ain't got the choice but to listen. But what else are you gonna do? You either listen or go home. Because if you're not offering, and I'm not saying you can't do your theater, you got a little bit of, people like a little bit of salacious, a little bit of. But at the same time,
you have to talk about the things that matter to people.
Yes.
And let's talk about this thing here right now. There's something called the that happened, and a lot of people don't know that it happened. When it happened, Terry and I, we had a conversation about it. Barbados getting off the Financial Action Task Force grey list, the UK blacklist, and the EU blacklist. That was critical. That was so important to the average Barbadian, the average person who want bringing things, who want to send money somewhere, all these types of things, right? And again, it's not sexy. Who's gonna go on a platform and talk about this? You understand? But that was so important. And we had a conversation, but we had a conversation from a post-colonial perspective. These countries, there's what they do to us, and we should not have to be fighting for this. You remember the conversation we had, Terry?
I remember.
Right. All right. And this is something that actually happened is the Constitutional Reform Commission, not that part, sorry, got Barbados off the Financial Action Task Force, the grey list, the EU blacklist, on money laundering. When they were trying to say, oh, these people, these little small countries, black people, I don't want to say that on the air. But whatever. That's how they look at us. That's how they treat us. So between the Prime Minister and Attorney General, this is some of the work that they actually had to do to get us off those lists, to increase to protect our economic space. Because what our presence on those lists was actually doing was crippling Barbadian businesses, destroying our correspondent banking, the relationships with between our banks and the international banks and so forth. Go ahead.
I know you put the parliamentary republic thing, integrity and public life, and constitutional reform just to wind me up. I know that.
I know you.
because I can't believe that you would put those as achievements.
Of course, they're achievements.
Oh, do you want to go first, or should I go?
Republic was an achievement. I didn't think that means that we are still what? That's
do you want to go first, or should I? I'll let you go. You go long. You go ahead. Terry, are we giving her another 10-minute monologue?
The that actually happened. It literally happened. It may not have gone where we want it to go, but just because it doesn't go where we want it to go, we can't say, well, it never happened. It did happen. All right. Now, when it comes to the Constitutional Reform Commission, I put this in here on purpose because we had a conversation about this last week too. But again, if it didn't go far enough, does that mean it didn't happen? If a tree fall in the forest and you ain't hear it, the tree ain't fall? You can
That's a
continue.
philosophical question. I will continue.
Oh no, Terry. I think she just gave us a break. We should have let her continue.
That's true. That's
When
true.
we get a chance to get a word in.
Oh, I stopped for you to go on.
When we get a word in, we should try.
Right. You see, Leandro Rip Curl is saying, I agree. I work in the banking sector. Exactly, Leandro. And this is what scares me, that so many people are not aware or think about these things. I feel like sometimes if it appears in the press, I think the government thinks, okay, Barbadians were informed. No, they weren't. They didn't read in the newspaper.
No, but nobody's disagreeing you with those
And there's a natural
financial.
link. Yeah, and there's obviously a natural link between these type of things and the economic.
The cost of living, literally.
All right, calm down over there. Right? There's a natural link. There's a natural link between these things happening and the removal from us on the blacklist, the British blacklist, and the uptick in the economic performance that we are seeing. There's a natural link between that and crime, which is the topic that we were on just a second ago. But of course, there's a lag, right? There's a lag between where you see the economic performance increasing and a subsequent reduction in crime. And I guess what the question that we have to deal with is how do we put policies in place? I like the idea of national youth service in various forms. I agree it should be mandatory. I think it should be mandatory that young people, if they're not in school, if they're not doing something productive, so in work, then we have them in some form of national youth service, something. We have to think about policies that we put in place right now to arrest the future incidents of crime as we see the economic development, and also things that we can do right now to deal with the situation that is presently facing us with respect to the violent crime that we're seeing outbreaking on the street. It seems like on a daily basis right now in Barbados.
So on that point about the constitutional reform, integrity legislation, and things like that. Yes, you don't gotta put this slide back up.
We put it back up.
It's all right. I don't need the slides when I'm talking. It's all right. It's all right. I remember exactly. I remember what it is. So that's
I was doing that slide, right, Ronnie? I was laughing so bad. It was so morning, and I was saying with laugh, right?
I can imagine.
And I know I was like Ronnie get tempted, but whatever. Go ahead.
No. So let's start with the republic. Yes, Barbados is a republic, and I think that we should have done more because that's what people wanted. Nobody gives you 30-0 to do half major jobs. When we became a republic, so we become a republic in name, but we haven't transformed to the substantive republic that we need to be. And that creates distrust. I don't think the Prime Minister and those in the government appreciated actually you created more distrust because you're claiming your republic, but then the things that people expect of a new republic have not happened. Then you set up a constitutional reform commission after the fact of republicanism, and then the commission fails to deliver on the big things that are needed or to have the important big discussions. So really, you create more distrust in the political system than you are. So I think the republic move was not done properly. It should have happened in terms of being a republic and then having that new republic constitution. And really, the way that the government went about it, republic first, constitution reform after, created this nest for the conspiracy that we don't have a constitution that we're seeing now. So really, you created your own mess, and now it's biting all of us. That conspiracy that we don't. That's where it comes from, because people didn't actually question. Oh, but the republic did the constitution change? No. So you mean that we ain't got the constitution? No. But so really, that needed to be done properly. It did. There was no need to rush the move to republicanism, or not even rush it. There was a move to sit down and think, what does a new Barbados republic look like? What do people want that republic to look like? Do they want term limits for prime minister? Do they want fixed elections? Do they want a senate? Do they want elected officials? Do they want different offices elected, like a district attorney? Do they want judges? And yes, I hear people like, oh, but they had a constitutional commission that went around asking these questions. Yes, but if you then use the same kind of old-fashioned meeting in a stuffy school hall at 6 o'clock in the evening when people are tired after working, what would you expect for participation? You say for the apathy law, you had to find new ways of going to meet people to hear them. And the commission did not do that because they stuck to the old-fashioned way of commissions, just going into a town, a school hall. A few people that normally go to these things will turn up. The normal crowd give their opinion, and then the average voter has been shut out because you've not engaged in what I would call kind of post-colonial ways of engagement. So you use the same kind of methodologies, the very colonial methodologies, and then you're trapped in those methods. So I think for when it comes to constitutional reform and moving to republic, I would give the government a failing grade. I would easily give the government a D. That's being objective. That's being objective as someone who researches the Constitution, writes about the Constitution, publishes on the Constitution, lectures on the Constitution, and that is a fair assessment. Yes, on the face of it, we are a republic, and this has been my kind of catchphrase: a republic in name, a constitution in chains. So yeah, fine. You can say we're a republic. I can't argue against that as a concept, name and title, but substantively, we're not. We are still trapped in the same colonial Westminster Constitution, and nobody can argue against that. Nobody. That's a facts-based argument.
I
can try, but it's a facts-based argument.
However, y'all turning me into incrementalist, and this is not even me. I'm not even incremental by any stretch of imagination, but y'all turning me into one. However, I appreciate that we made this step. And listen, more than anybody, I want the Prime Minister to go further on so many other things. You understand? And I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I feel like I almost wish Mia was a man. I wish Mia was a man. If Mia was a man, there are certain things that she could do without even anybody batting an eyelid. And I don't think we appreciate that enough. If Mia was a man, the things that she has done so far, we will be seeing a lot of people who do not support her right now will be singing her songs and praises from a mountain. I sometimes wish she was a man, but that's where we are. My election just now, right? So I dropped out, so I didn't hear a lot of what you said in between, because literally everything went off.
But you know my arguments about this. I think I just think the government has really failed on transforming the systems of governance, and I think if you can transform those also have a lot of effects on all the other things we're talking about. So crime, the economy, education, it's all connected, and we need to see it all as connected. Is that web, and if you can transform how we govern ourselves, I think that permeates into everything else, because it kind of sends a signal to the rest of the system that this is the new way of doing things, whether that's more inclusive, open, fair, transformative way. If you have that transformation coming from the top, it filters its way through the rest of the system.
All right, so it's 6:50. I want to get in a couple of things before because we finishing at 7 o'clock today, regardless of what happened. I want to talk about something. One of the things that is very topical right now for people are the roads. The roads. All right, so let's talk about some of the roads that were actually fixed. Now, there are a lot of roads that were fixed. We cannot even begin to discount that the government has done a lot of work on the roads, but there are still so many roads to be fixed that it's ridiculous. All right. If we look at that's the road development there that has happened. And that's only some of it. That's not even all of it. That's just some of it. Because there are roads that I drive that were fixed that are not on this list. All right. But these are just some of the roads. But again, There's still a lot more work to be done there. All right. There is this thing that I find very interesting. It's called the CART project. I don't know how come I've never heard about it until I started to do this research. Where they're looking to, they've made a commitment to upgrade 60 earthen roads, 60 CART roads, basically. All right, that's one of the things that I really wish that they would do, because we still have some roads that are donkey cart paths that need attention. All right, but I feel like a lot of roads have been done since 2018. I remember driving down Colomorock, and Colomorock was ridiculous. And after 2018, I think that was one of the first roads that was fixed really. And I remember going down there so quickly that I had to pause and like come off the gas. And I was like, hold on, why am I driving so fast on this road? And I remember that it has been a long time since I've been on a smooth road. But anyhow, that's just by the way. Anything on the roads, Terry?
Well, the fix the roads. Of course, we had the Prime Minister at one point talking about potholes being transitory inconveniences, and not to say we don't have any potholes in Barbados, we still have some, but
no, they talk about climate change, but
yeah.
Listen, you can't make it from potholes being transient inconveniences to caused by climate change. You can't make this up.
I laugh at that, right?
I
laugh at that, right? But let me think about it.
That red lipstick on, she mind.
Climate.
Listen. In terms of things like roads, because I wrote an article today in Nation. Well, we released something that I wrote in 2017. I don't necessarily think roads should be a part of a discussion for election or for governance, and I'll say why. Roads are just
from whose perspective, from the
everybody's. Like, yeah, we can complain about roads from now till the end of time. But really, I think things like roads need to be taken out of our political conversation, because the reality of it is they always need fixing. We'll never have enough money. That's just it. We'll do our best to fix the main ones as we can, fix the arteries. And let me say this, because it takes away from the other discussions that can actually serve to get money to fix the very roads that we want to fix. Like, what are we going to do for education? Think about the amount of political language and energy we expend discussing potholes and roads. And I'm not saying they're not problematic.
I understand what you're saying, right? But I don't agree with you. Why I don't agree with you? What I would say is this, that as a politician, bragging about a road that you got fixed
exactly
might necessarily be but the type of politics that we have, it is. But I feel like that's the very basis of what the politician is supposed to fix: the roads, the coffee, the environment, whatever.
Exactly, and that's exactly the point that I'm making. Like you should not.
I thought you were saying that it should not be a party conversation, because as a voter, I'm going to complain about the roads not being fixed.
Yeah, but at the same point, no politician should be coming around like promising your road. Like that's what you're supposed to do. Like, that is the most basic of things. Roads, street lights. Like, why are you promising me the basic things? I want to hear what you're going to do for jobs. How are you going to get the new job? So I want to hear the fact that you told me to send my child to the University of the West Indies to do biotech and to do engineering and coding, and then you're going to want to build 10 hotels. So where my child going to work? That's the conversation that we're going to have. Don't tell me about you fix the road, because that's your job. Your job is to fix the road.
Politics in this space, and it's because politics everywhere, to be honest, in a lot of spaces. Even the other day, I was listening to British Parliament, and they were complaining about potholes.
Yeah, no.
It's just the nature of politics. But I do understand. I take your point on that. All right, so let's look at because you're finishing up now. Not one Russia. I want to look at the human capital programs that they've worked on. There was this program that I found to be really interesting. I don't know why I never knew about this. It's called the One Family Program. I think it's Humphrey who spearheaded it. He's been doing some very good work, I think, with in the particular ministry that he's running. Um, where to give a vulnerable um, family, I think, not just a handout, but they literally give them a hug, make sure the people in the house are working, those who are at the age to work and that type of stuff. Make sure they got bank account. They really transform that family's life, and they did it through support of the private sector. And there's a program to transform 1,000 families have been registered into that program to continue. And I think that is a very good thing if it continues, and hopefully it does. Basically, Terry, because Ronnie gone.
I'm listening to you.
You ready to go to leave too? You better take gone. It's 2 o'clock there now, right?
It's time for me to go just now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Ronnie don't like this, but the education transformation, basically EduTech 2.0, the government invested hundreds of millions into modernizing school infrastructure and curricula, shifting away from
Introduction of free education at University of the West Indies.
Reintroduction.
I wonder what.
So look. So Terry's being messy, and I have said before, I think that was a colossal mistake.
I was teaching at university at the time, University of West Indies at the time. So I actually taught students who this affected. So it was a big.
No, and I agree, but you're not going to hear any disagreement from me. But I've said before that I think it was one of the worst mistakes that the party could have made in terms of taking away a key philosophical pillar of its core. Like it should never have been done. And I think a big part of it is that Barbadians expected some kind of apology, some kind of recompense, a recognition that it was a mistake. And there's still folks up to this day who would try to defend it. And I think it's indefensible. And I make no apologies about saying that. Because I'll never try to defend the indefensible. You cannot remove free education from Barbadians at that level. Yeah, they're going to argue, yeah, we didn't interfere with education at primary, secondary, etc. But the reality is that it affected Barbadians. And I remember, I can't remember when it was
this day. That's
this day. Yeah, I was out canvassing, and I remember this guy. Hello?
Continue. I just said the word crime. Continue.
No,
you said it was Barbados, and I said crime, but continue.
No. I was out canvassing, and this guy, and I was literally was tears in his eyes, recounting his. I felt what he felt. And all I could do was apologize, because I could not look at somebody in their eye and say, "Oh, it was done for this reason," and And when you look at the gains for doing it were marginal. Like it wasn't any big lot of savings to say it was there was nothing. I think any party, and I'm just saying this blankly, I'm not talking about the Democratic Labour Party, or people always think you're trying to pick holes. No, any political party coming into the space has to deal with how it will continue to sustainably fund education. And that needs to be a conversation that we have during this election. Because and you realize the word I use, sustainably continue to fund education and healthcare. We started this discussion last week about the things that, the 3 big things I think that government should be involved in. I don't think we agreed on a third, but we definitely agreed education and health. The third is always a toss-up between most people. Some people will say transport, some people say housing, but I always say education, health, and the other one, I'm not sure, for 3 priorities for government. And we have to think, how do we come up with models to fund them? And what are the new drivers of our economy? That's what I want to hear from any political party in the space. BD, FOD, PPP, the coalition.
I
How
like
are you going to create drivers for the economy to pay for the things that we want to pay for, education and health? The other things we can always have side conversations. That's why I wasn't dismissing the road thing, but I just think these are two big conversations we really need to have in Barbados, and we're not having them because sometimes they may be crowded out by side conversations, and we keep kicking this can down the road for education and health and continue sustainable funding. Like that word is key. Sustainable funding. So 10 years, 20 years from now, how do we keep making these systems free or no cost at point of delivery?
I especially like the give back always idea. I like the idea because young people they're at school and the way they pay for the education is through give back always, and I think that's good for them in terms of them actually learning about the workforce at the same time. Does that make sense? Um,
Do we want to go further than give back? And this is
yeah,
a random idea
no,
that just
I
came
just
to me.
mentioned that as a by the way. That's not a overall thing.
No, it just the idea that came to me. Should you then have to like work for government for like a year or two?
Of
Should
course,
you be tied to the civil service so that
but
at least you get some experience? Or
I'm
I
not
don't
sure.
know. I'm just thinking out loud. You know, I'm just thinking, how do we make the most of all of these young people that we train? And then sometimes some of them will just leave. So I've said this before, we are subsidizing the economies of the UK and the US in a way that we shouldn't be. Because if we train, and this is a number I'm throwing out there, we train 100 graduates and then 50 or 60 decide to leave Barbados, end up in nice jobs. And most of them do well in the US, you know. They end up in good, upper level positions, doing well. And then that's not a benefit for us, but we've provided all of your education from primary straight through to university, and we've not gotten anything from it. So, in my mind, do we want to think beyond the give back hours? Like sometimes when you do get scholarships like Chevening or Rhodes or whatever, usually you have to go and work in the country, tied to a ministry, whatever your area was in, at least for a year or two, so that they can get some of that knowledge and experience. Maybe that's the next step. How do we keep some of these people around, at least for a little while? If you want to go after that, that's fine, but we get back a little something from you. Because some of these people never work in government. They never work in Barbados, or they never work in a way that we can get some of that knowledge that they go and give to the US and Canada and the UK and all those places after all of our free education.
I guess they're looking for opportunities. So
Yeah, exactly. I'm not vexed with that, but at the same point, we are a society, a small society, and we need to grow. We need to make the best use of our investment. And education and health are huge investments. Education costs us what, $500 million a year, or more than $500 million dollars a year. That's a lot of money. The biggest budget is education, I think, followed by health.
I think that Barbados benefits very much from having an educated populace.
Correct.
The price of education is always lower than the price of ignorance. So I think that Barbados benefits very much from having an educated populace. The reality is that in a lot of cases, we can pull somebody from anywhere to get them to do things that in other spaces people will find difficult to do. Let's be real. All right. So I think we do very well. I don't like to spend too much time debating the cost of education because
No.
of my views on it. I feel like it just should be provided free. That's it.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. But yes, there's a real cost to it that has to be considered. But
So the government should not be sending people letters telling them how much the education costs.
No, I think government should let people know how much education.
I always remember when that conversation was happening, Tarina, I remembered you when you told me that when you were at UE and you saw what the price of the education was or something like that? Tell me the story again.
Over 100,000
And it made you do what?
commit to giving back something to Barbados, right? So that speaks to what he was saying. I think it's important people understand that there is a cost to the education they're receiving. They're not bearing it immediately, but they should give back something. It's important for people to actually see that education at University of SNEs. I remember having a story with Ayo that Ayo just recited. That when they looked at the cost of my undergraduate and a master's study at University of SNEs, it was a lot. I couldn't afford to do this on my own. The government did that. So this means that puts a burden on me to give back something to my society. That's it.
Yeah. But again, to give back, you have sometimes the environment has to, the space has to be provided to give back.
That's for sure.
There is that.
Yeah,
all right.
That is.
Yeah. If there's no room, then there's no room. All right. So let me look at some of these comments because we're definitely gonna finish up soon.
Yes.
I was really up at 3 o'clock this morning, and if my energy seems low today, it's just like I'm so tired.
You were talking a lot. You had a lot to talk.
They want me to finish up my rant. Anyhow, so there's a difference between fixing roads and just paving them. And paving makes them look smooth for now. Millions spent, where did that comment? Well, millions spent and potholes already showing. So how long? You know what? I think Zach, the carman, I think that at some point in time, government is gonna have to have a conversation with the people who build our roads and decide and come to some type of agreement about the quality of the roads that are built. That conversation has to be had at some point in time because it's taxpayers' dollars, and you cannot build a road today, it break down tomorrow, and then you come back and you fix it again and being paid for it again next week. And that conversation has to be had at some point. So I agree with you to a point on that. In the printing, I don't know what that's about. You thought you were trying to lock me up. Who printed money to the other?
I saw one earlier, failure to implement integrity and freedom of information legislation.
Oh, that's Trisha up there.
Yeah. Which is true.
Yes, that is definitely true, Trisha. You can
Right.
a lawyer on this board will have that discussion. You is rated among the best in the world, so obviously there's a cost, but our focus should be talent retention. I agree with you, and aligning courses with our needs. Well, I don't know if I agree with aligning courses only with our needs. I think that there should be space for people to study what they want to study, but we should be able to provide the courses that we also need for the development of the country at the same time. I don't like going on the road. Why you want to do art? We need artists. Why you want to do music? We need music. Culture is important. All right.
And that's something that's happened in the US where they're cutting liberal arts programs because people get into this functionality of education. That debate, and it's not. Yeah.
But I understand Sudi at this point. And apart from tertiary studies, we should focus on vocational training. And I'll say this: I do some work. It's not through the vocation, but I end up teaching at the vocational training board. And there are a lot of young people over there doing training. A lot of people. I keep hearing saying people, they need to do more vocational training. But there's so many people being pushed out of the vocational training board every single year. So people are doing the training. Don't think that they aren't. All right. I think that sometimes if you don't say again, if you treat fell and we say it, then it falls. But a lot of training happens. Like the vocational training board does a fantastic job. Fantastic.
One of the issues there is, I guess, usually when this point is raised, it's concerns the amount of money spent in the. Yes, so we have students doing vocational training, but we're spending a lot of money on people at University of SNEs, for instance, and should we not be spending because we just we can't, or we cited essentially my experience at university, government has spent over $100,000 on me, no doubt, right? But can we really say that that money is being spent on an individual who goes to these vocations? Probably not. So that's the point being made. So can certain level of resourcing be provided to these young people who prefer to go into alternative career, well, vocational training as opposed to
Funding in terms of what though? To do what? You mean to train?
right for them to train, maybe start a business when they're
Oh,
finished.
okay. That part, because the training is happening. That's what I'm saying.
The training is happening, but you know if you're going to be providing say $100,000 for a student to go to University of West Indies, then you know seeing resourcing not be put behind the student going become a mason and helping them to start their practice, becoming an electrician and so on. That's usually the debate, and I think it's one that we should probably have.
And it's a very good program too, because not only are they doing the training, but they literally get stipends and everything to be there. And one of the things that I've noticed too is that like one semester you go and there's probably a set of students who are doing masonry, and then the next semester they're back there again, but they're doing carpentry. So they're becoming well-rounded tradesmen at the end of the day. And I don't know. I think sometimes too, one of the things that I find about our psyche is a strange thing in this country about people in Barbados is when they think about the vocational training, they don't see it in the same light as they see somebody who's at university. And it's strange to me. All right? Because, and I understand it at the same time, but they don't see it as though these people are doing anything that's important. You understand what I mean? Until they need a house bill. Until they want the car fixed. And you understand the point I'm making? But they're so, and by the way, I was gonna say this is very close to one of these skills trainings are very close to me. and they're always full, man. They're always full. The government is doing a good job in training those young people over there. All right. Angela Eunice Knight. I want to thank you for always being here and always sharing these links, always sharing these videos, and always being so supportive. And she's been with us from the start, I believe, right, Terry? And she has never left. And for the time, somebody told Terry last week that I have to put you understand what I mean on a mug. Because apparently, and I watched back the episode and realized that I do say like a lot. I don't even hear myself when I say it, right? So every time I hear it now, listening back, I cringe.
You said things tonight too. Don't worry about it.
I said it tonight. I was trying not to, but sometimes my brain, whatever.
This one is
when I make that mug, Angela, you're definitely gonna get one. If I make that, well, not if. When I make you're definitely gonna get one. And I just want to thank you for your continued support all the time.
Yeah.
All right.
So I think before we wrap up though, and we should wrap up very soon because it's well past my bedtime, as you guys like to say.
Terry's 5 hours ahead of us. For those of you who don't remember.
Exactly. So why don't we give the government an overall grade? Because we weren't able to go through all of the pluses, but we can grade overall. So we've already graded with respect to the economy. We touched on constitutional reform. When he gave his grade, I'm qualified really to speak about that. So I'll let the D stand for Ronnie. But of course, there's also crime. There are other aspects of the performance of the government that we weren't able to touch on, but maybe we can give them an overall grade. So what's your overall grade? I'll start with you, Ayo. What do you think is your overall?
I'm not giving an A+, but I'm giving the government an A.
Running?
Okay. So what I had done, I had to go back to find
your rubric. You into your rubric?
Actually, I know you're joking, but actually do have
I am sure you do. I'm not joking.
I'm such a nerd. This actually works. So in 2021, I actually sat down and I wrote an article on this, and I kind of asked each a question. I worked it out and scored them on: has the government needed to stop corruption, mismanagement, auditor general, education reform, cabinet size, garbage collection, everything. I went through. And at that time, I had scored them.
You rate everything equally, or you give certain weights?
No. Everything was equal.
You didn't give the constitutional reform 90% of the weight, did you?
No, and this time there wasn't. There wasn't a constitutional reform in this weighting. This was a while ago, and at that time I had given them 11 out of 54. So this is in 2021.
You're hard.
I get the 11 out of 54. 11, yes. So
you fixed the economy. You reintroduced free education at University of the West Indies, and 11 on the money.
No. It was a fair. No, the scores were 0 to 3. The scores were from 0 to 3. The lowest. So 0, obviously 1, 2. It was like a 0 to 3 scoring. Anyway. Yeah. So now, if I had to grade the government from a honest perspective on where we are, I think it would have to be
you manage COVID. You forget.
You trying to influence my grading or what?
And we know that if the DLP was managing COVID, all we would be dead right now.
Anyway, yes, Bronny. Sorry.
Lord, I
had to say.
Hail Mary.
Yeah.
I think I would have to give the government, overall, I would have to give government a C minus, and that's about as much as I can do. And I think that's a fair assessment on everything, because there'll be some high points, but then some of the lower points will drag them down. So you might get a point for, as I always say, or you become a republic. But then when I gotta say, okay, what kind of republic? Then that point gets cut away. You get a point for, you saved the economy. But then when I say, you shift the debt from local to external, that cuts away the points. And that's the thing with this government. It's always a kind of
on that point,
double story.
On that point,
one further question there before we get in. So we just grade them, but was this you grading them on a curve? Let's grade them relative to what could have been like the alternative.
No, but Terry, but you can't grade like that. If you grade it, and you got grade in front of you. I can't grade you. I can't grade you too.
You don't grade it. Universities, you grade on a curve, right? We
don't use a curve.
To rank all of these students properly, Ronnie.
No. I need to grade you by what
you're ordering these students, Ronnie. You put it.
But you've taught you know that you don't use the curve.
I know they don't. Yeah.
Please use what in front of you. Please look at that paper in front of you. Have you achieved?
You absolutely cannot get 100 in my class.
That's not true. That is not true. If you deserve 100, you will get 100. But I think that grade happens because, as I said, even when they do something well, and you say, okay. So as I said, the Republic's a perfect example. But then you just went and you fudge it on the reform side that. So there's always that story, and I think this is another thing. I hope maybe we can have a discussion about this and get some other thoughts. That's part of the psychology of the government, and maybe even, as I said, there's always this language and performance of revolution and change. But once you drill down, you recognize actually we've not gone much further from where we are. And there's a lot more road to travel, but the way that the stories are sold.
A C or
C minus.
C minus or C minus.
Don't forget the minus.
All right, so I guess
Ronnie, Terry, what's your grade? You didn't tell
I'll give the government I'll get overall a B. I think they've done well.
selfish.
Of course. Pardon?
Y'all are selfish, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think
Wow.
be is fair.
That's, are you giving him a what, eh?
I'm giving them an A. I'm not giving it A plus, but I'm giving them an A.
Wow.
And why am I giving them an A? Let me qualify that. I'm giving them an A because if I have a student in my class who has been struggling and struggling and struggling, right? Are they, I'm sorry, let me put it a different way. If I have a student in my class who is in an environment that is not conducive to learning, all right? And I put some things in place, and then that student is able to come out and turn everything around in spite of, not because of.
Most improved student.
That is my most improved student, and they're going to get a great grade.
Fair enough.
Do you understand that?
Yeah.
So
we're going to put that on a mug. We're going to put that on a mug for sure.
Sorry, I say it again?
You just, yes. Don't worry about it. Go ahead.
So my point is, again, I cannot ignore the realities of where we came from. I lived through it. I did not even want to leave home. Terry, remember when I didn't want to leave home? Because it was just nasty.
I know you don't want to leave home now. So.
I know, but imagine back then, somebody, a friend that said that I was turning into a hermit. It probably was turning into a hermit because it was just awful, right? Everything Barbados was not the same place, and I live on the South Coast.
No, but I get all of that.
I can feel the difference.
No, and that's fine, and it's interesting. I guess that's the beauty of this show. That this is where the Barbadian society is at. A, B, and some C minuses thrown in there. So this is a good cross section of people's thinking about the government. Some people think they've done amazing jobs. Some people are like, all right, I'll give them a B. Yeah, fair. And then others like, and I think too what is missing, and that's why I'm liking the show that's happening here, is that serious discussions. And we're having a little fun in between, but I think more of these kinds of discussions need to happen. And what's missing right now from the Barbados election is a big discussion around the economy. I am not hearing it from anyone yet. What is the nature of the economy? And when I say that, I don't mean necessarily the Barbados economy, but on its own. But how does Barbados economy fits into the global framework being, and what's the way forward? I've not heard that discussion. Perhaps that will come out more as the PM mounts the platform.
She started to talk about the global political realities, the geopolitical realities, I should say. She started to talk about that. She started to talk about what, but she hasn't done a lot. I saw one or two very short.
It's not happened. It's not happened.
No, she's talking about it. The thing is though that again, oh, that's Ronnie babies again. You see, I have
that's yours. That's not mine. That was not my knocking. That wasn't me.
Me?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. I have this computer hooked up to a Bose speaker, right? So it like all the little songs are like, But anyway, where was I going? Right. Again,
Prime Minister is not doing a good job. That's what you were saying.
These conversations that you want to have, Ronnie, with the electorate are not sexy enough for them.
No, it's not. So okay. So this is where I would be if I was running any campaign. You can have two tiers of conversations. You would need to have because you still have to have this conversation. So you have to have it at one level. So really, you're talking to lots of different groups about different things at the same time, and that's what a good campaign has to do. So at some point, you have to be having that discussion about the economy with the folks who run in the business, who want to hear that message. And then you have to have the discussion for the folks who are saying, my road network's really bad, or my community center is not. So everybody has their needs, and you somehow have to talk to all of them at the same time and convincingly with all the different messages that are required. So a campaign, as much as it's one, as much as it's one unified message, there are multiple messages to different groups to meet their different needs. The conversation I'm going to have with a pensioner is definitely not the one I'm having with the millennial. I bet you never want to hear them with the home ownership.
You know, the campaign that was very well run at the national level, talking national level now, the 2018 BLP campaign. That campaign was so well run.
What a wonderful place to end.
But again, opposition politics is always a different animal. But yes, Terry's just on bed right now.
Yes, Terry. Sorry for holding you back, Terry. Sorry.
Like, not there, you know. So he's struggling right now.
No, I can imagine.
But
that's the time that I usually come alive, Terry. That's my kind of hour. I like.
Me too, you know, you get a lot done at that hour, right?
Yeah, let me tell you, that's the time. Yeah.
But lovely being here, audience. Again, thank you for joining us. And thank you so much, Ronnie and Terry. I like this. I like this combination. We have a financial economist, a lawyer, and a political troublemaker.
Come on, animal is right.
I think we made a good team. All right. Yeah. So good luck. Thank you so much for joining us. And please,
you definitely were on your
live long and prosper. It definitely was on what?
Your caffeine today. You definitely had you brought the energy for you brought this little party. You did a good job. They'll be very proud of you.
I know there would be.
Let me tell you. Influencer.
Right. To be worse to be an unpaid one, then I guess.
Today, right? That I simply want what's best for Barbados. At the end of the day, I had a little spat with somebody from the Democratic little party over a little foolish misunderstanding yesterday or something. And
oh Lord, why you do this?
Not that. It was another one that went around. I sent a screenshot to two people and one body sent it far and wide anybody. But I mean, the Democrat Ronnie, when you were running for the Democratic little party, we were still friends.
Yeah, but they didn't make a difference.
And I was voting in your constituency then, and I told you that Ronnie, I'm not voting for you.
Yeah,
that's the conversation we had. Do you remember that? Do you remember that? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
And that was okay. Well, I ain't gonna hate you for not voting for me.
I always stand on my principles, and I messaged this youngster about something, and he answered me in such a way like, "Oh, well, it's just for what would you be interested in? That it is for party. What you said? Something party."
I remember you asking me about my policies and stuff, and even if you weren't voting for me, I still gotta tell you what your potential voter. You never know. I might have said something and said, "Well, I might get a little chat."
And it was literally your constituent at the time, right? Yeah, I want people to understand this about me, right? Because a lot of people get very confused when I'm having. If I have a conversation with my friend, that's literally.
That's red fingernail polish. You go 100, are you?
That your business. That's literally what I'm having a conversation about. I'm not having a conversation with you because of some ulterior motive. I come to you in good faith and tell you this poster is weird nonsense. You got a poster here and the poster. First of all, how you having a private event during a national election?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
The whole thing going on makes sense. So
crazy.
It's crazy. And then he responded some nonsense about what he said, something about, oh, well, why are you interested in this event? Because I'm a voting public, though. Make it make sense, sir? You understand? But be that as it may, that's just an example of the craziness that's going on during this season. Whichever party comes out on top, good luck to them. I still gotta live in this country. But at the end of the day, the only thing I've ever wanted for Barbados is what's best for Barbados. And this is why my vote can never be bought. And this is why it can never be a paid influencer for that matter. Because the only thing I want to do is to look at the facts, analyze those facts, and make my vote count towards what I think is best for the country at that point in time. And if Terry running for a party, and Terry is my brother, and everybody knows I love Terry to death. And if Terry running for a party, And I feel that Terry and his party is a bunch of ning-nongs at the
It's
point
part
in
of my
time
party tomorrow.
and not ready to run the country. I can't vote for Terry because
Fair
my
enough.
conscience would not allow me to. You understand? And anything that if I come to you, if I had messaged Ryan, you think Ryan would have responded like that? Because Ryan got sites. You understand? I'm never on a malicious height. You understand? I could admit that I probably shouldn't share it to one of the people that I share it to. It's silly season and somebody can share it. But at the end of the day, what happened is what it is. But I'm looking at the bigger picture. You can't run an election talking about you having a private event for supporters and members. That's crazy. A post that don't make sense. We don't understand if it's buses that run it. And then on top of that, the post that you just put up again, and I don't even talk to the blogger that shared it. I don't know how it got to the blogger because I don't interact with that blogger, so I definitely would not have shared it over there. And then this one here, who Ralph Throne and the 2025. This is crazy messaging in going into a national campaign. All right. I have no personal growls with anybody.
All right. We are ending exactly how we began.
I know the monologue. I know.
All right.
It's
not a rant. It's a monologue.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where I stand. Lovely to be here.
Yes.
Good to see you guys. Thank you very much.
Next week. We're thinking about doing a show on Wednesday. But that has to be worked out because I literally was supposed to go back to work next week. Week after, but I'm going back to work next week. But we're still thinking about doing a show on Wednesday. But we'll talk about it.
Yes. All right, guys.
All right, guys. Take care. All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Our Worldview. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube at JP Our Worldview. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and smash the notification bell so you'll know when we upload new content. Join us next time.